It was supposed to be a new beginning. My girlfriend and I had just bought our first house together, a place where we could finally settle down and feel safe. The first time we stepped inside, the air smelled of fresh paint mixed with the faint scent of old wood, and it gave us a strange kind of comfort. We were proud of it. We laughed as we carried boxes inside, imagining the life we would build. Even our little rescue cat, Bella, darted from room to room as if she knew this was home. But there was something wrong. The problem wasn't with our house, it was with the one right next to it. That house stood unfinished, abandoned in the middle of construction. Its walls were half-painted, its windows dark and empty, its yard overgrown with weeds. And the fence that once divided our properties was gone, leaving nothing between us and that lifeless structure. It looked like a wound on the street, a silent place that had been left behind. On our very first night, as we sat in the garden, talking about how happy we were, I noticed movement. My eyes lifted to the upstairs window of the abandoned house. That was when I saw him, a man, perfectly still, watching us. His face was pale, his expression blank, his stare fixed directly on us. He didn't move, he didn't wave, he didn't blink. For 30 minutes, we sat there, pretending not to notice, but every second his eyes burned into us. Finally, we went inside, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the house wasn't empty at all. The following nights only proved it. He was there again, always there. Standing in that same window, silent, unmoving, watching us as if he had been waiting. Then came the others, men who didn't belong. They cut across the abandoned yard with no hesitation, carrying bags of things they'd clearly stolen. They even stepped into our garden once, offering us dishwasher tablets as if they were neighbors. Their smiles were too wide, their stares too long, and then they disappeared back into the darkness of the empty property. At first, we told ourselves it was nothing, just squatters, people looking for a place to hide. But then the noises began. Whistles outside the window, soft at first, then louder, crueler. Footsteps pacing the yard after midnight. Voices whispering just low enough that we couldn't make out the words. Every night, it felt like the house was alive, like something was stirring within its walls, something that knew we were here. One night, while I was in the bath, my girlfriend called for me to stay quiet. I crept to the spare bedroom where she was pointing toward the window. Outside stood a man we had never seen before. He was in the abandoned yard, his arm raised, his finger pointing directly at her. When he noticed her camera, he suddenly bolted, running straight toward our house. He grabbed the handle of our front door, shaking it violently before vanishing into the night. We called the police. They came. They said they'd handle it, but nothing changed. At 2:16 a.m. the next night, the whistling returned. Long, mocking notes that cut through the silence. Then came the tapping, slow, deliberate taps on the glass, again and again. I checked our cameras, but there was nothing. The next morning, our doorbell camera was gone, neatly removed, the memory card missing. The police told us when people take cameras, it usually means they're preparing for something. The fear grew worse. Some nights, he appeared in a mask. Other nights, barefaced, grinning as he stood in our yard. Once, he spread his arms wide, tilting his head as if mocking crucifixion. Another time, he stayed across the street for hours, waving slowly whenever we peeked through the curtain. But the worst came at 2:52 a.m. An alert lit up our phones, movement outside. Two masked men crept along the side of our house, flashlights cutting through the dark. One carried what looked like a crowbar. They weren't just wandering, they were searching, testing. We held our breath, pressed against the wall, praying they wouldn't come closer. Finally, they slipped away, but the image burned into my mind, the glint of the crowbar, the slow, deliberate way they moved. Since then, every night has been torture. Sometimes it's the whistles, sometimes the tapping. Sometimes just the overwhelming feeling of being watched so intensely that the air itself feels heavy. The police say their hands are tied. Staring isn't a crime. Whistling isn't enough. And so we are left alone, waiting. I've started to wonder if it's all a game to them. If the stolen cameras, the missing recordings, the endless nights of harassment are just the beginning. Maybe they're waiting for the perfect moment. And when the house grows silent, when the clock ticks toward 3 in the morning, I hear it again, that slow, mocking whistle drifting through the darkness like a promise. And I know, deep down, that the house next door was never empty. It was waiting for us. This was only the beginning. A few weeks later, I came across another story online, from someone miles away, but their experience sounded hauntingly familiar. They too had thought they were safe, until strange things began to happen at night. Their story began with knocking. Not just random noises, but deliberate, steady knocks that echoed through the house at the same time every night. At first, they ignored it. But soon the knocking turned into scratching, long, dragging scratches that came from the walls, as though something was crawling inside. Then, one night, the scratching stopped, replaced by the sound of breathing right outside their bedroom door. Slow, heavy breaths, rising and falling, as if someone was standing there in the dark, waiting. When they finally opened the door, no one was there. But something had been, and once it found its way inside, it never left. Another person told a story of being followed home late at night. They noticed a car behind them, headlights dimmed, keeping the same pace no matter how many turns they made. When they pulled into their driveway, the car stopped at the end of the street and sat there. Hours passed, and it never moved. Then, when they finally fell asleep, they woke to the sound of someone whispering their name from outside their bedroom window. Each of these stories had the same pattern: the feeling of being watched, the noises in the night, the whispers, the figures just out of sight. And in every story, the fear only grew. I don't know what us worse, the thought that all of us are being haunted by something supernatural, or the idea that it's just people. People who have nothing better to do than to terrorize strangers for their own amusement. People who know how to break into cameras, who know how to disappear when the police arrive, who know exactly how to make you feel powerless. And so, night after night, we wait. Listening to the whistles, watching the shadows, wondering if tonight is the night they finally step through the door. Because the truth is, once you realize you're being watched, once you know that someone or something is out there, staring at you while you sleep, your home is never your own again. It belongs to them. And you can only pray that when the whistle returns, when the tapping begins, when the shadow stands at your window again, you'll still be alive when the night is over.